So, you're an early stage founder, maybe in AI or deep tech, and you're trying to raise capital. You probably know that less than 1% of startups actually get VC funding. It is an incredibly competitive world out there. Well, this explainer is for you. We're going to cut through all the noise and get right to the metrics that make an investor say yes. Let's dive in.
It's the question every founder asks, right? What is the secret sauce? Beyond the pitch deck, beyond the 5-year plan, what are the actual tangible signals that get an investor truly excited? We're not talking about hypotheticals here. We're talking about the hard proof that gets a check signed. And this really gets to the core of it. As a founder, you're pitching this grand, world-changing vision. And you need that. But you have to understand what investors are buying. They're not buying the dream. They are buying the proof that you can make that dream a reality. They're funding traction. Right, so let's start with this first big idea. Investors buy proof, not dreams. Your vision, your amazing idea, that gets you in the door. It gets you the meeting. But it's the proof that gets you the funding. Believe me, these investors have heard 1,000 grand visions. What they want to see is that yours is already starting to happen. And here's the thing that might be a relief to hear. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be big yet. But it absolutely has to be real. Investors are looking for authenticity. They want to see the messy, scrappy, early signs that you're building something that people actually need. So let's break down the difference between hype and proof, because it's a big one. Hype is a press mention or a really flashy demo. It's exciting, but it's noise. Proof is the signal. It's that early user data, even if it's just from a handful of people. It's showing consistent progress week after week. And it's real evidence that you're tackling a genuinely hard problem. That's what moves money. Okay, so proof matters more than hype. But you might be thinking, what if I don't have any revenue yet? Hey, don't panic. That's super common, especially at the pre-seed stage. Traction does not have to equal revenue. What you need is just evidence. Evidence that you're onto something and that people actually care. And that evidence can show up in all kinds of ways. Maybe you've gotten a couple of companies to agree to a pilot program. Or you have users signing up for a waitlist, even if they aren't paying yet. You could have developers installing your SDK, or even just inbound leads coming from a blog post you wrote. All of these things show you're not just building in a vacuum. Now, you might get a huge spike in one of these metrics. An article goes viral, and suddenly you have thousands of signups overnight. And that feels amazing, right? It's super exciting. But a smart investor knows to look a little deeper. Because a spike is just a single event. It's exciting noise. Consistency, though, that's a durable signal. It's that steady week-over-week growth that shows your progress isn't just a fluke. It shows that what you're building has real staying power. And you know what? Durability is what gets funded. And here is another super important point about traction. It's about depth, not width. Seriously, an investor would much rather see 10 engineers who use your tool every single day and would be lost without it than 10,000 people who signed up once and then disappeared. That small, obsessed group of users, that's the seed of true product market fit. All right, so we've talked about finding those early obsessed users, but what about everyone else trying to do the same thing? The tech world mantra is always move fast and break things. But what if, especially in deep tech, there's something even more important than just speed? This quote just nails it. Speed is great, of course, but if anyone can come along and copy what you built in a few months, you don't really have a business, you have a feature. The real question investors are asking is this defensible? And what we're talking about here is a defensibility moat. It's your unique strategic advantage. It could be your core technology itself, a proprietary data set that no one else has, or even a unique process you've developed. It's the thing that answers the question, why is this going to be hard to compete with 5 years from now? And this is exactly why things like patents are so much more than just legal paperwork. They're actually a metric. Filing for a patent signals to an investor that you're not just racing to ship a product. You are thinking about the long game. You're building with intention, creating a truly defensible asset. And that is incredibly valuable. So we've covered traction and defensibility. But, some of the most powerful signals you can send to an investor, they don't show up on any dashboard. Let's talk about the invisible metrics. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about something called learning velocity. It's not about how fast you build things, it's about how fast you learn. An experienced investor knows your first idea is probably not the final one. So what they're betting on is your team's ability to test, listen, and adapt. It shows you're not just guessing your way forward.
And this is what that process, that learning machine, actually looks like. First, you ship an experiment, not just a feature, but a specific hypothesis you want to test. Then you test it with real users to get that raw, honest feedback. Third, you measure the results with cold, hard data. Did it work or not? And finally, the most important step, you adapt based on that data, not on what you hoped would happen. This cycle is how you prove you can find your way to product market fit.
And there are other quiet metrics that are just as powerful. Is a well-known researcher or even another VC reaching out to you? That's inbound interest. Did you get accepted into a top-tier accelerator program? That's powerful third-party proof. And maybe the most important of all, do you have a deep personal connection to the problem you're solving? That's founder market fit, and it tells an investor you have the grit to see this through. Okay, so we've got all these different pieces: traction, defensibility, learning velocity, these quiet signals. What do they all add up to? Well, they add up to one thing, and it's the most important thing of all: momentum. I love this metaphor because it's so true. Investing, especially at the early stage, is all about momentum. Investors need to feel that sense of inevitable forward progress. When they feel that energy, that this thing is happening with or without them, they don't want to be left at the station. They want to jump on board.
And let's be real for a second. No early stage startup has perfect metrics. Your charts are going to be messy, your data is going to be incomplete, and you know what? That is totally okay. Investors are not looking for perfection. They're looking for signs of life, signs of progress. They're looking for a team that can figure things out. So at the end of the day, your job as a founder is to be a storyteller. It's about connecting all these dots: your first few users, that patent you filed, your latest product experiment, and weaving them together. You need to tell a single, compelling story of undeniable forward movement.
Because that's what gets you funded. The numbers on their own won't do it. The story behind the numbers will. So take a good, hard look at all your points of proof, all your signals, big and small. Your metrics tell a story. The only question is, what story are you telling?